If you're a chocolate bar, which would you be and why?
I mean, my favourite before I was celiac was double decker, so I'll probably go with that.
And you like work with transport, so it's like a double decker bus
I
transport.
hadn't thought about that.
It's the reason why was why I struggled. I thought I'd like to be dark chocolate with ginger because it's complex, interesting, and only sophisticated people seek it out.
Who's your favourite person in the Bible? Naomi, you can answer that one.
Joseph, easy.
Why?
Just such a great musical, also story in the Bible. Just, I don't know. I just think it's an inspiring story about listening to God and prophecy, and like having rivals with your siblings. And I think, yeah, this is great.
Fair enough. Yeah. I would make you, if we had more time, I'd make you sing us one of the songs, but you're not going to. Okay, Nick. What did you want to be when you were younger?
I really wanted to be one of the rubbish bin men because they looked like they had fun and always waved as they were running down the street, lobbing the sacks on the back of the truck.
Fair enough. You still could be.
Yeah, it's still an option, I guess.
Yeah, still got time. Chantal, that's a good question. How did you come to faith?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't really have a moment when I came to faith, but there were sort of moments on the journey. My parents went to church sort of about once a month, family service, and then I got a bit more interested in it when I was at secondary school, and I joined the Christian Union, and it was a kind of gradual growing through my teenage years. But there are a few moments, like when we were 8, I remember being in the family service of a really small little village church, and we prayed it would rain. I remember coming out and it started raining, and all the grown-ups are kind of continuing like nothing really had happened. It was almost like church happened in the building and they were out of it. And I was just blown away, like, it's raining. And they're like, yeah, it's raining. We've just been praying for rain. I can still remember that. And my grandfather was a really committed Christian, and I can remember, he was a big influence on me. So there's no big flashbang in my story.
Does the continuous change in us mean our relationship with God is in constant flux? So does us changing mean our relationship with God changes? God, I don't think...
tag in Chantal to answer this one.
Right, keep going.
I don't think God changes. So in that sense, like, he doesn't change, but we do change, and therefore actually our relationship towards him probably changes, but how he is towards us doesn't change. So I don't think like how he is for us, he doesn't change, but we definitely do. It's like our relationship with anybody changes over time. We get to know people differently or better and things like that. So I don't think God changes, but we change, and therefore our relationship with God changes to reflect how we've changed.
And I think the image of something growing is a really helpful one here, because as something grows, it's naturally changing as it grows, but it's still the same plant or same person, but they've grown. And it's the same here. We grow in our relationship with God, so we change as a natural consequence of that.
Yeah,
but God is completely unchangeable.
Yeah,
he's the kind of constant in it all. If we're plants, he's the sunshine. Just there, constantly the same.
Okay, if you were to travel in time, would you go in the future or in the past?
I want to go both ways, just because, like, I do quite like the idea of like bows and arrows and swords and that sort of medieval fighting, but I also want to see what happens in the future as well. So I don't know. I don't know which way I'd want to go.
I couldn't imagine you'd be very good at fighting though, Josh.
I mean, you don't have to be very good at hitting people to fire a bow.
I can see the medieval reenactment societies all have to recruit you.
In your opinion, what is the worst thing to put on pizza?
Pineapple.
Like, I'm glad you said that because I completely agree with you.
Oh,
It's
No.
like
it's
it's just wrong. It's
I agree.
It's a dessert, not a.
What's so
Yeah,
wrong about
like, you just-
pineapple on pizza?
I disagree. I'm with Josh. It's not.
No.
See, I'm yeah. Let's not have lunch together if we're gonna go get pizza, because I'm just gonna be disgusted if we eat pineapple.
No.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's like eating custard with, like, I don't know,
With your
a
fries.
sausage or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just don't.
Have you ever tried it?
No, I don't, and I don't want to.
You can try it though, Josh, and tell us how a sausage and custard taste.
Fair enough.
Right, next question. I think this is a good question. I think we can all answer this because it's a one-worded answer. How would you describe God in one word?
Awesome.
Oh, you nicked the word I was going to say.
That's going to go great.
Lovable.
Yeah, we're split between the big and the loving.
Unimaginable. Just so vast you can't imagine it. I think it's Nick. If you could ask God one question, what would it be?
I was thinking about this one earlier and I couldn't narrow it down to even 10 questions. I just have, there isn't one that I feel that I desperately need to know the answer to, but there is just so many things I'm curious about. So I'm quite looking forward to when I get to heaven, just being able to hear about all the amazing things he's done and how everything works and why everything works like it does and all that kind of thing. Or maybe, what do you want me to do next is often the question I've probably asked him the most.
Yeah. Chantal,
Mm-hmm.
what is the most important thing in a friendship?
I think the most important thing in a friendship is kindness.
What one moment stands out most for you with an experience of God? I'm trying to think of a moment I haven't already shared with people before because I've told everybody everything. I've had one recently, actually. I tell you, it's not like the biggest moment ever, but I had one recently. I've had a dodgy knee for years, forever, like since I was like in my teens. It's always a bit dodgy. And recently I've just finished reading a book. What's it called? Chasing the Dragon? I can't remember. Is it, what's her name?
Jackie Pullinger.
Yeah, Jackie Pullinger. And
This
in
one.
it, there's, yeah, that one. I've told you to read
Good
it.
book.
Glad that you listened. And in it, it talks a lot about them praying in tongues and like just, you know, they prayed for stuff and God doing stuff. And this was about a couple of months ago. I'd got into bed and my knee was really painful. It had been painful for weeks, like, and it just, I couldn't sleep. It kept me up all night. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and I'd like prayed and nothing happened, and I was like really kind of annoyed at God. And I thought, oh, I'll just try praying in tongues. It's not something I usually do. Prayed in tongues and instantly it stopped hurting. Instantly, and I was like, this is weird. And literally at 2:30 in the morning, I'm running up and down my stairs to like just to double check that I wasn't just imagining it. I was like, I don't feel I am. And then I was like, you know, like when you just get that feeling like inside, like when God tells you to do something. And I was like, God, I really should tell someone about this, like right now. I was like, can't do that. So what if I wake up and it's back to hurting? I'd look like an idiot. So obviously I ignored God and went back to bed and went to sleep. And I woke up in the morning, it was aching again. I was like, see, I told you it hurt. And I prayed in tongues again and instantly it stopped hurting. I was like, maybe I should listen to God and tell someone. And I was about to meet my mum for a walk and I couldn't find, I'm not going to take myself in a good light now. Couldn't find my glasses anywhere. I'd misplaced them. And instead of being like all joyful because God had healed my knee, I literally went into a rage and was like, God, why are you doing this to me? Knee started hurting again, found my glasses, walked down to the park, saw my mum, and I told her about in the night how, you know, all what had gone on and how I'd actually had raged at God and my knee started hurting again. And but as I told her about how, you know, God had done that, knee stopped hurting and it's literally not hurt since. And I'm like, it's pretty cool. So that was probably my experience recently of God. Also, don't rage at God when he's just healed you and then you're there going, God, why do you hate me? I can't find my glasses. When did you become a Christian?
Well, I was brought up in a Christian family, so from birth, I guess.
Was there a time you particularly had to own it for yourself?
Well, I got confirmed, I think when I was about 12, so
So obviously you've stuck with it because you've had lots of opportunity to go, no, I can't be bothered. But
I mean, I didn't really bother all that much when I went to university, and sort of the first couple of years after I moved down here, I just like, I need to sort out a church, but never really got round to it until I moved into this flat and just thought, there's a church just down the other end of the road. Yeah, but this is probably the right time.
It says, was God use of lowly people because they were the only ones to submit to him, or because they could never gain recognition through society? So I think she's asking, did the people who God used are often people who weren't like high in society? And yeah, why do you think that was? Why do you think he used people who weren't like necessarily kings and stuff, but instead chefs?
I don't like, I'd say because all of us aren't kings and queens. Like, it's just to make it relatable to us. Like, if God chose like kings and queens and people who had thousands of pounds and were like really rich in life, I feel like growing up, you would have been like, these people never understood like us, and they weren't like us. So why would God use me if like all the people he used were like worthy of some sort of power? So I think God just used them to just, you know, make you feel like whatever you have is enough for God, and you don't need to be all rich and powerful. Like, if you have nothing, God still uses all that you have because he loves you. So I guess that's probably why he didn't use like the rich and the kings, and well, he uses them, but like in our essence is more of us than there are kings and queens. But yeah.
Why do you think talking to your friends about God can sometimes feel awkward?
I think a lot of the time with your friends, you don't want to feel like you're broaching a subject that you disagree on. And if your friends aren't Christian, then you know they're probably going to disagree with you. And so you sort of start off almost on the back foot. But I'm not sure that's always true, because the amount of times I've ended up talking about Christian things with friends, they've often been interested, or if they're uncomfortable, they change the subject. So you find out anyway. But it's just about doing it in a sensible way and in a kind way to them. I like that one that Chantal used earlier. Good friendship is kindness in it. So that's not about ignoring it, but it's not about overdoing it either. I
think as well, it's not something we really talk about in society generally, is it? I think increasingly it feels like a subject that people don't really talk about in other places. So it feels a bit uncomfortable kind of going to somewhere where you sort of slightly have to move the conversation there in order to get there.
Yeah.
But actually, I've been surprised by people have been quite interested and open when I have had the guts to do it. You know, you sort of like, oh, you say something and you kind of, and then almost kind of wait for them to say, you know, to completely disagree with you. And actually, often, especially if it comes from your own experience, people are just interested to hear about what you've got to say.
What is the achievement you're most proud of and why?
Oh, I looked at this question earlier and I couldn't really, there isn't like one thing. I don't know. I don't really have one, I don't think.
not even one. I was thinking mine would be along the lines of having 3 teenage kids who are still all alive.
I mean, three children. Yeah, maybe just 3 children.
Okay, who has most influenced you? Oh, that's a difficult one to think of one. There's lots of people I could suggest. I think maybe, I don't know if this is the person who's most influenced me, because I think there's a lot of people I could say at different points they've influenced me in different bits. But when I was younger, one of all my youth leaders actually, they really, really influenced me, I think. I think probably why I do what I do now is partly down to what they did for me when I was younger. I had one youth leader, Andy, who he just, I don't know why, but every week for like, I swear it was like 2 years, it might not be quite that long, but it felt like it. He'd asked me to do a talk in what was called Beta back then, basically Ignite. And I refused for 2 weeks, for 2 years solid. He used to ask me all the time. And I used to be like, you're asking the wrong twin. Like, Charlie's the one who likes the God stuff. I'm just turn up for the cake. And I think it was actually just like, when I started doing youth stuff, he used to like give me feedback, and like he used to be quite quick, like he'd like be really like, oh, you could do this and that, and then it'd end his kind of feedback, like, but that was the best talk you've done, and I just be like, oh, I'd take that from him because he'd like give me good feedback. So I think actually like he really influenced like just me doing youth work. Like it was probably because of his encouragement that I started even doing it, and it wasn't something I planned or. So he's one of the people who probably influenced me a lot. Josh, if you had to wear a food, which would you wear and why? I don't know if it says and why, I can't see it on the screen, but which food would you wear if you were to wear a food?
I did have a think about this before, and I was just like, what doesn't go off or takes a very long time to go off? And what I thought was jerky.
Okay.
So I would probably wear jerky just because it takes a very long time to go off.
Yeah, see, I thought on similar lines. I thought fig leaves or something would be.
What's your favourite book?
I mean, mine's Genesis because Joseph is in it. I feel like that's a really
No, book that isn't the Bible.
There's a book that's not the Bible.
Oh, I don't read much.
I thought you were waving around that one because you'd prepared it already.
No, I've actually not read it yet. It's just sat there.
I told her she should read it.
It's really good, Dan. You should read it.
Read it to my room. That's a positive. Does a cookbook count?
It's a book.
I'm counting it because it involves food.
Fair enough. Anybody else have any other book suggestions?
I've got one to hand. It's called Living Under the Threat of Heaven. And I've got to say it's one of my favourites because it's written by my mum. And it was illustrated by Becca when she was about 5 or 6. And so there's a picture of the angel that was by my mum's bedside when she was going through her operations for breast cancer. And this was a story of sort of going through that whole experience of having breast cancer and coming out the other side, but just God with her through that whole thing.
That's awesome. So a book suggestion I have that I think all the young people should read is from our very own Jonathan. I think that is well worth a read. I Can Write.
I Can Write, yeah.
Yeah, I Can Write. I read it before I ever met Jonathan, and it was but definitely it was a really good book. And when I lent it to my twin Charlie quite a couple of months ago. And when my grandma died, a few months ago, I can't remember what we were talking about at the time, but I was kind of talking about it. And Charlie was like, Beck, you've read Jonathan's description of heaven. Grandma's loving it in the garden. I was like, oh yeah, that's a fair point. So Charlie was like, you need to go reread that chapter. Okay. So no, I think everyone should read it. It's good read. Any other?
I didn't have to do that. I was sitting here thinking he's going to kill me if I don't mention it. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Don't happen to have a copy to hold up for the camera?
I don't have one on me.
I've got one. Hang on, I'll go and grab it. I know where it is.
No, don't tell him that either. There's not one in the bookcase behind us.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, there we are.
It's on my to read list. It's closer to my bed.
It's in your bedroom.
It is. It's right by the end of my bed, so it's actually reachable to actually start to read it.
Did you just say you found one?
Yeah, we got one.
No. I'd ran out the room. I've committed to.
I just sent you on a running mission. That's all.
Yeah, I was surprised there weren't any of those sort of almost the Radio 5 type ones of what would you like on your tombstone when you're gone? Or
well, I didn't include mainly the chilled houses questions of what is your mother's maiden name? What is your PIN number? And those questions. Well, thank you everybody for giving me your evening to do this.
Thank you, Becky.